April 1st, that's the day legal recreational cannabis officially to be sold in New Mexico. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed a bill making it legal last year, as you know, but retailers haven't been able to sell legally. That ends next week. Bringing back our line opinion panelists, New Mexico is one of 18 states to legalize recreational marijuana, and now the first legal sales are almost here. We're going to get into some of the specifics of some lingering concerns, like the impact on medical supply, water rights and usage, and tax revenue. But let's start simply. Dan, let me start here. Is New Mexico ready after all this? I mean, we've been going at this in the legislature. I'll remind people one of the first ideas was to sell marijuana here in state-run shops. That died, thank God. Are we ready to do this, Daniel Foley?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether you'd say we're ready to do it or not. It's going to be done. And the reason I take that approach, Gene, is
good distinction there.
We haven't handled DWIs very well in the state, and we're still leading in getting that stuff with that industry. I do think that it's a unique question, right? Because at the end of the day, you got a lot of people who are for less government that are calling for more regulation, right? You've got a lot of folks who normally call for regulation who are calling for less regulation. I was watching last night, and there was an interesting scenario. So as a disclaimer too, in my private life, I actually have some clients that are in the cannabis business. We do insurance for them. It's interesting because, I think we're late to the party, right? When I was in the legislature, there was a real push with Gary Johnson saying, hey, let's be first, and we could have this tourism section, right? But now everybody around us has got it legalized, right? I mean, we're not going to have people flowing over here to do it. Now, you may see a windfall in southeastern New Mexico where folks from Texas are coming across because they don't have it in Texas legalized yet. But I'm not sure. I mean, one of the things I noticed, we hear very little. It'd be interesting to have someone do a report. We have very little. We see very little on what the number of folks that are going to be out doing the enforcement perspective, the testing perspective. I know to some instances, the Department of Ag, I think they would tell you mentally they're ready. People-wise, they may not be, right? They don't have the right amount of folks out there to be doing the work that needs to be done. And so I'm fearful that this is one of those topics where we probably shouldn't get the rollout wrong, right? It's sort of like opening up a fast food restaurant. You don't want to have 2 employees open the door and have 7,000 people show up the first day, right? It's probably better at the very beginning to have more employees than you need. I'm not sure we're taking that approach in New Mexico when it comes to enforcement and testing and the regulatory side of this, helping people get the licenses through, training. I'm just not sure we've invested on the front end.
Let me kind of add to that. It's an interesting point, Dan. Kristen Thompson, we've had her here on our show. She's the director of the Cannabis Control Division for the Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department, just to let you know who she is. They're increasing their number of employees, doubling from 12 to 24. To provide better support for what you're saying, Dan. So we don't know if that 24 number is actually the right number. So this is going to be sort of feeling our way along here. And Crystal, let me get to something here. The National Nonprofit Drug Policy Alliance, that's one of the groups concerned about product availability. Worried if there's a rush on recreational businesses won't have enough to cover medical. Is that a legit concern from what you've been able to glean?
It is. I've worked in the cannabis industry before with several different dispensaries and producers, even went out to Nevada to kind of research the cannabis world, even spoke at a couple of cannabis conferences. And it is a legitimate concern just because of the supply and demand, obviously, that we'll be seeing. I think that it can actually be a great sales tactics for a producer or for a distributor is actually prioritizing the medical first. Because let's look at it this way. If you really wanted cannabis, you were able to get it with a medical card. It wasn't difficult to get a medical card here in town because it's CNPs and doctors that would write that.
Good point.
And so, yes, but it's more concerning in terms of inventory for those that actually need cannabis to just simply eat because of chemotherapy or because of seizures or epilepsy, the actual medical needs. And so the right thing for a business to do is to actually section off some of their inventory for medical patients or some to choose to stay medical, which many of the dispensaries that are currently here right now with chains like Organica, like Ultra Health, et cetera, some of those actually, this not only is this the day that they're waiting for it, they've all been waiting for recreational cannabis.
Right.
However, one of the conversations that nobody has talked about that I've had to look at from a crisis perspective is actually as we grow and as we scale, we're looking at horticulture, we're looking at agriculture, and keeping cannabis going in terms of keeping cannabis growing and growing correctly. Sometimes pesticides actually come into it, and that's a conversation none of us have actually had, that if you accidentally put the wrong pesticide to help increase the amount of cannabis that you produce or to protect the amount of cannabis that you grow from harmful bugs or from just the crop being eaten by just the natural way of things happening, pesticides can actually be incredibly problematic for our crops here, especially with how small that we have the crop count currently in New Mexico.
Right.
That I actually foresee. Yes, we've got the social justice component of it with expungement. You've got the inventory, but pesticides is actually a topic that we haven't talked about in any of the conference conversations. And people could die if they're smoking cannabis with the wrong chemical.
It got very little play during the legislative debate. It came up maybe a couple of times. I really didn't hear much about it at all. And Dave, let me kind of extend Crystal's point here. Retailers are required to set aside 20% of their products for medical use. Crystal's making an interesting case, though, that perhaps there might be a second safety net necessary here, because 20%, should it be 20, 30%? Should it be 40%?
I think that all of these things are going to have to be decided. I will say this. Prohibition was ended by Franklin Roosevelt in 1932 on the federal level, right? And we are now at 2022. We're coming up on 100 years when that's been going on. There is still a lot of change, and there's a lot of who gets to sell booze, who doesn't get to sell booze. Sometimes it's controlled state by state or county by county or, town by town. There's going to be a lot of players that have regulatory authority here. I think New Mexico, look, it's a cash crop. I think it's good if we can grow it here. I think it's good if we can sell it here. And, it's another expansion of the economy. And I think New Mexico could do, if we can get the equivalent of Hatch Green Chili in the Hatch in cannabis, I think that's going to be very good for the state, and we should work to do that.
Hey, Daniel, some environmental concerns with cannabis, no doubt, specifically water use. Water rights groups like the New Mexico Acequia Association lobbied for provisions to protect community managed water sources. Didn't pass the regular session either. Should this have been addressed before recreational rollout?
Yeah, I think part of the problems with the cannabis from even back from when
Still with us there, Dan?
Yeah, sorry, you guys muted me. I got muted by the host. I didn't think I said something bad. I'm confused here.
I had an itchy finger. Sorry, bro.
We got Twitter over there censoring me, taking me off here. I'm getting nervous. We've got one of the things that was early on when we started talking about this, even back when I was in the legislature, was it was amazing how many people felt that there could be a potential problem, right? Whether it was acequia folks, water folks, pesticides, neighborhoods. A lot of this stuff is just going to take, like a lot of things, you're going to have to just take the first step and then make the corrections as time goes on, right? I mean, one of the things with a lot of these grows, I think one of the ideas behind limiting the size was to help curtain, the growth pattern of the product. Like lots of folks are growing it indoors, right? Lots of places are getting old warehouses and they're growing it indoors. So they're able to recycle the water and do things far different than if they went out and planted 2,000 acres out in the middle of nowhere and, were watering it through, a process that was letting the runoff go back into the ditches or back into the ground. So, but I think there's a lot of valid questions. I think a lot of people just kind of, even legislators, someone comes in, raises a point, just because you don't act on it doesn't mean you don't agree with them. Lots of times it's like, hey, there's not enough information for us to do something, but let's watch it and we'll take action when we need to.
That's not unusual. I appreciate you saying that, Dave. There's one thing about this that interests me a lot. There have been 225 licenses issued. 225 so far. And they're not going to all open on April 1st, certainly. But can we manage? I mean, Arizona opened, I think, with like 70? Massachusetts with about the same number, if not less.
Right.
Is this manageable, really? 225 licenses?
I mean, it's no, but I mean that doesn't mean they shouldn't try, and I think that's one of the things you're going to see because, also, in some ways, I mean, people talk about protected markets and people talk about whatever, but if you have 225 of these businesses opening, and it becomes clear that only 50 of them are actually going to maintain profitability, the market will shake out what's going to happen,
Right.
or they won't. And it's just, I mean, I'm all about, like, I think we should make it accessible to everyone. Yet we've done that. I don't know what kind of, that Arizona has opened so many fewer, and there's such a larger state population wise, might give one pause, but we'll see. Look, we're 2 weeks away. We're going to find out. That's all we can say, right?
Crystal, let me ask you one quick question. I got about 30 seconds, if you could be so kind. What does this do to the black market here in New Mexico? Is there going to be a significant change in your view? I'm not asking you to be the all-seeing guru of all things marijuana across the state, but this is a debatable question, whether this is going to help on that side of things.
Well, the toxicity is actually where the black market will actually benefit from it in terms of the amount, how strong cannabis is, and what are you allowed legally to sell. So if there are people that actually want a more potent type of cannabis, they're definitely going to be looking to the black market. And that was something that was a problem with medical cannabis and still is today. So the black market will start to see an effect of this, but whether or not it's regulated correctly or not, we'll see. So
here we go. April 1st. Thank you again to our panelists. These are all topics you can hear about on the podcast, Growing Forward. Now, in collaboration with New Mexico Political Report, correspondent Megan Kamerick explores the future of the cannabis industry here in New Mexico. You can find Growing Forward anywhere you get your podcasts. Right. Now, here's environment reporter Laura Paskus.